This is Actualize Freedom, straight talk on growing clicks and conversions on Amazon FBA from people doing it every day. Now here's your host, digital marketing acrobat, Danny Kenji Carlson.
What's up, my Freedom Actualizers? So I have put together something really valuable for you. I just sent an email to all 65 plus of the past Actualize Freedom podcast guests, just asking if they could put together a special deal just for you guys with their softwares, with their courses, whatever they're offering. There's a lot of people out there who have really valuable Amazon software that we talked about. There's some courses out there that some of these courses have been made just for you guys or are 50 to 70% off. Some of them are completely free. So this is all of the best exclusive offers only for the Actualize Freedom podcast from the podcast guests themselves, from the masters themselves. So to get this, guys, just go to actualizefreedom.com. You'll see right there on the homepage where you can go and get that list. So this is exclusive offers just for the Actualize Freedom podcast listeners like yourselves from the guests themselves. So go check that out, actualizefreedom.com. What is up, guys? Danny Carlson here, and we have Mr. Bradley Sutton. I'm sure you guys have seen him on the Serious Seller podcast, and he has got the craziest backdrop I've ever seen. If you're watching us here on YouTube, we're just joking that the helium-10 balloon is what they are floating off into the night. He's the slowest bad guy in the night sky, but it's pretty cool up there in the balloon anyways. So first thing I want to talk to you about, Bradley, is changes to Amazon keyword URLs. This is something I know I personally get asked about all the time, and I'm sure you do as well, just because Amazon changes this kind of stuff. So like when it comes to using special URLs to try to boost your keyword ranking, how have we seen that change over the past year or so here?
Well, I that was my specialty before I came to Helium 10. I was a consultant for Amazon sellers, and my main thing was launching, and I launched over 400 products. And almost all of them, I kind of did the same way. I was using two-step URLs and like discount promotions. And there's some people who say, oh, those don't work anymore. So it's true and not true. It's mainly not true because yes, they still work. As a matter of fact, I just posted in our elite group, I just did 2 tests. I always love testing things. You know, I'm not actively consulting anybody right now or anything, but as we know, it doesn't matter if you want to be in the industry, you've got to be actively, and you're not a seller, you've got to be actively doing stuff though to keep your pulse, because things change on Amazon all the time. So last week I did 2 different tests. I used 2 different services. You know, I'm not affiliated with them at all or anything. I used one was a rankbell.com and another one was azrank.com. And what I did with them on the first one, I was like, hey, let me test, let me give them a coupon, 70% off coupon. And it was a new product in the honeymoon period. And it was a keyword that had, I think it was like 1,400 searches. So normally a mature product, you would have to give away about 20 to 30 units in order to give you the best chance to get to page 1. And I used a brand 2-step URL. That's one of the ones, that's one of the free ones you can get at helium10.com/gems. It searches by the brand, in other words. I only gave away 4 units, 2 units in 2 days, went from rank 250 to page 1. Another one, I use what's called the Field ASIN 2-step URL. 4 units again over 2 days, boom, got to page 1 on a newer product. On the azrank.com, what I did with them was I used an organic. That's something that's kind of new that you didn't hear about 2 years ago, people saying the term search, find, buy. Basically what that means is your customers are just literally doing an organic search. They're typing in something, no URL at all. They're just typing in a search term in the search bar. They're looking for it. They find it. They buy it. Right. So another one, it normally it has 2,500 searches on this one. I gave away, I think 6 or 7 units over 3 days, got to page 1 position 2. So 2 things we learned from these things. Number 1, 2-step URLs do work. Discounted promotions still work. Now I'll talk a little bit later about what you got to be careful with about discount promotions. Those still work. And then also, products that are in the honeymoon period, that's something that's hotly disputed. But there's disputes as far as how long that lasts. Some say 4 weeks, some say 6 weeks, some say 8 weeks. But there definitely still is a trend, and this has been for years now, where brand new products get like a little bit more love from Amazon when they first start out, as far as once you're trying to do some kind of promotion on it, because they're kind of giving you the benefit of the doubt that you're a new product. They really want to highlight you. The one thing I did say though was just be careful sometimes with discounted promotions. Definitely do not ask for a review if you're doing any kind of follow-up email automation. And be careful, like if for whatever reason everybody just wants to review your product, Amazon could frown upon that, because you got to think about it from their viewpoint. They see a whole bunch of orders come through the review that had a 70-80% discount. Even if you're 100% innocent, in Amazon's eyes, it looks like, wait a minute, these people, are they getting a discount because they're doing a review? So you just got to be careful with that. But those are the trends that I see now. Same methods still work. And number two, a hot way to kind of get to page one is definitely organic search, find, buy.
Yeah, and what are some of the concerns, just for people who aren't really following in a lot of Facebook groups, what are some of the concerns around these keyword URLs? Like, some people are claiming that they're not working anymore. Like, why are some people seeing such mixed results with the keyword URLs? Or has that just been something that has always been a conversation?
Well, last year, over a year ago already, the most famous two-step URL actually did see decreased usability. I did about 30 or 40 tests on this, and that's the storefront two-step URL. So for whatever reason, the storefront two-step URL, around fall of 2018, I did not see the kind of results that it would have had like 2-3 years ago. Why? And sometimes it's random. Sometimes a certain product just doesn't perform well for a certain kind of URL. Why that's the case, I'm not sure. Other people maybe put the URL wrong. Like, for example, I mentioned the helium10.com gems. Instead of copying it there, they actually hit the link, and then Amazon kind of like translates that to another link, like a different link. And then that's the one that people are copying. And yes, in that case, I have seen, poor results, but I'm not sure why. I am sure. There's just a lot of people who like to sound smart, out there, or want to start drama. And maybe that's why they're saying that, oh yeah, store or two-step URLs are dead, or they don't work anymore. But it's just not the case. They definitely still work.
Yeah, I mean, the Amazon seller communities and Facebook groups and stuff like that, there is a lot of gossip and stuff that goes on, right? So if someone hears something through a friend, a lot of the time that's what they're posting as a fact in the Facebook group, when really these people have not verified anything themselves. And as Amazon sellers, I think a lot of us have to, we have to pay attention to the things that change and all these kind of fear-mongering things. That's what gets the most attention. And so someone comes up with, one product launch that didn't work because of something, that information can spread very, very quickly through the Facebook groups, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like I said, the URLs, I mean, even search, find, buy sometimes. I mean, things work differently sometimes for different products. And yeah, there are some outliers where, even when I do like 50 tests, there's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 where I just don't get to page one for whatever reason. So, so maybe somebody who they're one of the outliers, for them, their whole experience is, which was one keyword, that it didn't work. So, those might be the loud people. But anybody who does this with any kind of regularity or at scale will definitely tell you that these methods still do work.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to hear what you think is the most effective product launch strategy today. And maybe that's a mixture of a few things, or maybe that's just one strategy that you recommend. But I'd be really curious to hear, how do you recommend launching products in today's Amazon space?
The best way is a product launch that almost doesn't require a launch. And so that's like the product research stage. I'm doing some different case studies right now that I haven't made public yet, but there was just one where we found it where the main keyword only had 2,500 searches. Let's just say that. And then there was like some minor keywords that had less than 1,000 searches estimated a month. And there were some bigger keywords that we weren't sure were relevant to it, but what we did was, we saw that there was trends that says that, hey, this could be moving in a certain direction. And you could look at what trends are before Amazon. If you look on websites like Etsy and Pinterest and things like that, where whatever you see there come up for keywords, a lot of times the trends are 5 to 7 months before Amazon, because, Pinterest is a lot of ideas and people are those are consumers who are just putting up their ideas and things. And a lot of time Amazon is after things have been established. So if you see something trending like on Pinterest, sometimes that's ahead of the curve. And so this test that we did, showed that. So we went and bought this product and put it up on Amazon. We didn't even do any launch for it other than just, putting up some PPC. There was nobody even bidding on these main keywords. So just by bidding on it, anything, like it was like 50 cents or something, we were already at the first position. And we launched this product like maybe 6 weeks ago, I want to say. I was just looking now. I'm like, oh my God, we got to reorder because we're almost out of stock. We've been selling about 14 to 17 units a day, a product for $26 that cost us $4 to make. And we didn't even do a big launch on it, completely organic. So if you want to not have to worry about like, oh my God, I don't have a budget to give away 1,000 units to get to page 1 of collagen peptides or something, don't go after those products. Go after one where the competition is so low. Just by being there and maybe a PPC, you already get onto page 1 organically, like after a couple weeks. And then once you start getting some reviews in, the sales just take off. Now, if that's hard for you to find, that kind of category, it's definitely a mixture. PPC always plays a role in it. Organic search, find, buy, like those websites I mentioned, again, has nothing to do with Helium 10. Rank Bell, AZ Rank, whatever, I've tried Rebate Key before. If you're using these websites, they can help get your product out. Now, if you don't want to use a service because like maybe it costs, you look at the prices and it's too much, well, you can maybe do your own launch, use Facebook ads and ManyChat and get people into flows and show people how to search for it. But the key at the end of the game is you're not going to crush your launch unless you can get to page 1 for your main keywords, or at least some keywords that are relevant to you, and start converting. And the actual truth of it is, don't let anybody tell you different, but there's no one exact way to do that. I've done it with just PPC. I've done it with not even any PPC. I've done it with discounted promotions. I've done it with rebates. There's just no one way to do it. There are wrong ways. Don't let people tell you to do black hat strategies or things like that. Yeah, that could get you in trouble. But just at the end of the game, know what you're getting at, which is trying to get to page 1 for your main keywords.
So I wanna go back to something you mentioned there that's really interesting about the Etsy and the Pinterest, how it's a good place to see the rising trends of possibly some products that are going to be really hot on Amazon soon, right? Because Etsy, obviously, for those you don't know, is like usually a handmade products marketplace where there's just a bunch of really small sellers. Like my sister has a brand on there of her handmade jewelry. And she actually does really well. She got featured on the email list of over like 2 million email subscribers, and just her sales shot through the roof of her own handmade stuff, right? But what was really interesting about what you said is you can find the trends there. So like, how are you doing that? Is there any tools that you can use to see like search volume trends, kind of similar to Google Trends? Or are you just going on to like the hot and trending page on Etsy? Like, what are you doing to really get a good idea of that?
It's just a bunch of rabbit trails. All right. So like maybe you find something just really, really general, like something you just saw on the street or something you saw on a TV show, or just browsing like the home pages, just browsing around Pinterest. Right. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get to like what the main keywords you think might be. Right. And so a lot of times, and this is great for even, you can go backwards. Like you could start with Helium 10 and then get to a certain niche that actually on Amazon looks like it's saturated, which most are. Like you could find something through the tool, and then you're like, you go on Amazon to validate it, and you're like, I think I'm a little bit late for this, or everybody's got 300 reviews or 400 reviews. It might be too late. But then take that keyword and then put it into Pinterest. And then what you do is you look at the results of that keyword on Pinterest and compare it to what you're seeing on Amazon. And sometimes what you'll see is like, maybe on Amazon, what's the top sellers, what's the main things, they're all, let's just say something like, give me a random sample, like something that might be saturated on Amazon that you think, not like a supplement, but because there's no supplements on Pinterest or Etsy, but give me just a random product that you think is saturated on Amazon.
Dildo.
A dildo.
Yeah, I
Like,
use that as an example in a lot of my videos.
okay. I don't know if those are allowed on. Give me something else, because the direction I'm going to go with this
no
is
dildos.
going to make it very uncomfortable to do dildo. You'll see what I mean in a second.
That's, you guys know where my mind's at. First thing that pops into my brain all the time. But okay, another example. Let's go with insulated coffee mugs.
Okay, insulated coffee mugs. All right, so let's just say that everything on Amazon is the typical thing that you would think of, which is stainless steel. All right. So like that's all you see there. All right. Now, if you go on Pinterest and type in insulated coffee mugs, I'm sure it's the same thing. But let's just play devil's advocate and say that for all of a sudden, like 50% of what you see on Pinterest main page is wooden or carbon fiber or some other material. And that's not on Amazon. Well, sometimes what that means is there might be kind of like a fork in the road as far as the trends are going, where now there's this newer technology or there's this new material that's come out. And now the trend is everybody wants vintage looking. You see how it wouldn't work for a vintage wooden dildo? That wouldn't work. but then you can hop in ahead of the curve. Like, hey, everybody seems to be like talking about this insulated coffee mug now in carbon fiber. And then what you do, there's a third kind of validation that you do. You go to Alibaba, right? And then see what are the main results. All right. So if on Alibaba, there is like almost nothing there for carbon fiber or wooden insulated coffee mug, then that really tells me that, hey, this could be something, because I've had it before where I see something definitely seems to be opportunity on Amazon. It seems like maybe it's trending in Pinterest or Etsy, but then I go to Alibaba and like the whole entire first page is like all the same product, which is exactly what I thought I was going to do. Well, what does that mean? That means maybe 3 months ago it was an opportunity, but it's already huge, and probably everything's on the water already on the way to Amazon. It just hasn't hit Amazon yet. And I've seen it happen a lot of times. But if I can see something that's trending on Pinterest or Etsy, and if I go to Alibaba and I can see that there's barely any factories, that's like a gold mine, a potential gold mine in my mind, because I'm like, hey, I'm ahead of the game. Yeah, it might get saturated, but I'm going to have at least 4-6 months or maybe more of kind of exclusivity on this thing. And then by that time, I'm going to have so many reviews that it's going to be harder for other people, to hop on. So again, the whole, this whole question was about launching and stuff. But like I said, it goes back to your product research. Don't be going for the shiny, red car. Go for the old used car that might not be getting any love right now, but is going to be making either a comeback, or maybe there's some new trend that's gonna push it to the top, and you guys are gonna ride a wave of success on this that you just couldn't normally have if you're doing the traditional thing that everybody else and their brother is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one nugget just makes this whole episode worth it right there. That is just a very smart sounding strategy, and that's the first time I've heard of anyone using Pinterest or Instagram or Etsy to validate good product niches coming out before they actually become powerful. I just want to touch on one last thing on the product launch here. So let's just say that you got a new product launch coming up, and you have to dedicate a certain amount of units to, one type of URL, and then maybe you're going to do some search, find, buy, and then maybe you're going to turn on some PPC. Like, what is kind of the mix of the different strategies that you would combine together if you're launching today?
It all depends on your budget. I mean, you might be some big baller 7-8 figure seller, and you can just go for all your main keywords at once. Like, I just interviewed somebody on a podcast who spent $150,000 on his launch. He's a millionaire. He can afford it. For most of us, that's not the case. So you don't always have to go for your main keyword. Like, let's say your main keyword is coffee mug. If we're going with that motif there, maybe you can't afford that the PPC bid on it. It's going to cost you $5 at the beginning, or CPR number. The number you have to give away to be on page one maybe is 500 units over 8 days, and you're like, I can't afford that. So what you do is look for the longer tail keywords, and those, especially if you're getting more relevant to your product. So like insulated coffee mug with lid, or something. Okay, that's not going to get 50,000 searches like Coffee Mug is. Maybe it gets 3,000. But go for that. You're going to have a lot cheaper bid on PPC. You're going to have to, quote unquote, give away a lot less units in search, find, buy, or whatever method you're using. And it'll be a lot better to get to page one that way. And then even though that's not the main keyword, it has the main keyword in there. So like maybe your end goal is Coffee Mug. And one of my buddies, I don't know if you know him, Tim Jordan, he gives his like kind of launch strategy with this illustration. He's like, it's like your store. He calls it storming the beachfront. All right, your end goal is to capture the castle. That's kind of inland. But when you storm the beachfront and land with your troops, you got to take over the beach first, and then maybe take over the grassy hill up there before you can get to the castle. So if your castle is Coffee Mug, you're storming the beach first and taking over the insulated coffee mug with lid first, and then conquer there. Then you can go to the hill. Then you get to the castle. So that could be your strategy, even if you don't have a huge budget for your launch, is to try and hit those long tail keywords that have the seed keyword in it, because you're going to get a little love on that main keyword. By doing 4 or 5 keywords that are long tail that have the main one, it doesn't make the main one go to page 1. But maybe you've gone from unranked to like 250 or maybe 200 or 150 or something. So then by the time you are ready and you do have the budget to go after that main keyword, you're going to spend a lot less because you've been like little by little helping that keyword by going after the long tail ones.
Yeah, that just gave a really funny visual of a big coffee castle and a bunch of coffee soldiers spraying coffee all over each other on the beachfront. And
another reason why we couldn't go with the dildo
war.
with this one.
Yes, that is an even better visual right there. Love that. And Bradley, so you have interviewed a ton of successful sellers at this point. I'm curious to hear, what do you see as like the trends between the sellers who you interview who are very successful and a lot of the people who are in Facebook groups just can't make it work, who are on the opposite end of that? Like, what are the differentiators between the successful ones and the non-successful ones?
One thing I've seen, and regardless, here's just one preface. Success is different things to different people. For some people, success is not until they hit $1 million. But for some people, success is just hitting what their goal is. And some people, they like to have a 9-to-5 job. They just want an extra $2,000 a month or something, on the side. And if they hit that, they're success. And it's not up to us to say, oh, you're not successful, you're making $2,000 a month. So I think that a success is a relative term. And I've interviewed people across the spectrum. I've interviewed 9-figure sellers. I've interviewed people who are just barely starting or who have been on Amazon for a while, but maybe only have 3 products and just have a little side income. But the kind of common thing, no matter what, is when they go into Amazon, they do it with a realistic viewpoint. They're not, a lot of them say, hey, you know what? I just did my first product, not even expecting to crush it, but I wanted to get the education out of it. Like, I'm like, hey, I might drop $3,000 on this new niche, but maybe I'm not going to make $10,000 out of it. But you know what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a learning experience, and I'm going to learn exactly what works and doesn't work. And then for my next product, man, I'm going to be more prepared. And I've heard that same thing. And I think that's so important that when you go into your first one, don't be expecting to become a millionaire off of your first product, because you're just setting yourself up for failure. Unless you are some super genius, it's very rare to actually have success with your first product. But if you go in with the right mindset and knowing that no matter what happens, you're probably not going to lose too much money, as long as you're doing things the right way. Even if the product's a failure, like it doesn't make you 5x your money, it's very rare that you're going to lose like every single penny. I mean, you might have to lower the price or something, but at the very least, know that you're going to learn something. So if you have that mindset, you're setting yourself up to have success, because even if you don't make money, you're still successful with that first product because you went in there knowing that your goal was to learn the process. And then that's the number one thing about the people who fail is they use the 2-step URL and it didn't work for them or something. Now they think Amazon is a scam, because they didn't have the right mindset. So be ready to fail, be okay with failure, because failure means that you're at least learning something. And then just make sure that you're going to pick yourself right up off the mat and go forward. And from the 9-figure sellers I've talked to or the brand new sellers, that is one common thread of people who are happy and reaching their goals and scaling their business no matter what level, is because they look at the whole process as an educational experience, and that they can always learn from whatever mistakes that they made in the previous one, and they don't give up just because they hit some kind of roadblock.
Yeah, I really echo that too, because I think it also puts you in a place mentally where you don't have to make it work. That's where I see people really making really dumb decisions and getting themselves in even more trouble when something goes wrong, is when they have to make it work. They've put inventory on a credit card. They need this like so badly, and if it's not going to work, they're just like mentally are going to beat themselves up, and it's going to be terrible. I unfortunately meet these kind of people all the time, just in the Amazon space, and usually they're going to be making decisions that get them in actually even more trouble. They're going to be getting desperate, so they're doing some black hat tactics. They're going to be, they're just not in a good place to be making the right decisions. Whereas if you come into it with the mindset that you're saying, then when something goes wrong, you're going to take it as a lesson, and you're going to be much more positioned to make a good decision instead of freaking out and literally or figuratively losing your shirt over making your mistakes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Heck yeah. And is there anything else as far as mindset, or maybe even like strategy, when it comes to the successful sellers versus the non-successful ones?
Think like a buyer, not like a seller. All right. And I use this illustration. I don't have my Helium 10 hat here, but if I had a Helium 10 hat, I would take it off and I would put my Dodgers hat on, and I'm like, hey, take off your buyer or your seller's cap and put on your buyer's hat. Because what happens is, when people start using tools like Helium 10 or whatever tool they're using, or they start listening to or going on the Facebook groups and they start listening to podcasts and everything, they get into such a seller's mentality. What I mean by that is they're worried too much about certain metrics and like, what percent relevant am I to Amazon? And what if what do I need to do to make my listing, how many characters are in my title is the best one, and this and that. There's all these seller metrics that at the end of the day means zero to the buyer. The buyer could care less if your title has 173 characters compared to 162, whereas maybe the Amazon algorithm, you found that there's some kind of correlation, right? And what sellers are doing, the successful or the unsuccessful ones, is they're forgetting about who they're trying to market to. You're not trying to market to Amazon. It's not Jeff Bezos who's buying your product. Yes, you do have to make Amazon happy with things. Like, you can't go beyond certain character things, but make sure that's secondary. Your first importance, your first priority should be your customer. What kind of image is going to really convert my customer? What kind of copy is really in my bullet points is really going to make an emotional connection with my buyer? These are the kind of things that people forget about. They're like, oh, there's 200 characters in my title, I've got to use every single thing up there, and they're just keyword stuffing. No buyer likes to see keyword stuffing. I mean, when I see keyword stuffing as a customer, as a retail customer, I'm like, okay, forget this listing. This is Mickey Mouse. I don't want this. So the successful sellers always think about the buyer and make that emotional connection to them. And then they worry about, okay, now what works better for relevancy to Amazon, or how many characters do I need to go? But don't forget who your customer is.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And I see that all the time. People who just keyword stuff the heck out of their listings. We get clients coming to us for the agency that their title is, it's impossible to see what's going on. They've repeated the same main, like 3 different variations of the main search phrase, but it's very hard to get the really key information out. So I always recommend focusing also on something I like to call key info optimization. Like, what is the key info that a shopper on the search results would need to see in order to make the click? If you don't have that key information there, like let's say that it's iPhone compatible, or it's pack of 20, or whatever it is. There's, with different products, there is a certain set of key information that someone is scanning for in order to make the click onto your listing. And if you don't have that within the first little readable bit of your title, your click-through rate is going to be a lot lower. People who, they're like, stainless steel water bottle, stainless steel water. It's just like, it's really annoying to try to read through that, and it's just redundant, right? You're not gonna get your keyword ranking boosted that much that it overcomes the customer the customer actually reading your product correctly, right? So I think that's a very, very good point. And Bradley, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that people, if they follow that advice that you're giving, it's that same thing that I'm talking about, just thinking about what resonates better with the buyer. And sometimes what happens is we just can't think like a buyer because we get so into the mindset of a seller, like we just literally can't take ourselves out of the equation. And if that's you, that's fine. Go to a family member, go to your work, and then show them like different things and say, hey, if you were searching for this, what does this look like to you? And make sure that these people don't know which one is your product, so that they're trying to tell you something that you want to hear. But crowdsource this information, beforehand. I can't even think of it right now, but look, Google split testing, Amazon buyer, in order to crowdsource information, and you'll always be surprised. Like sometimes what you think is your typical buyer's preference is not what the reality is, and you'll find that once you start crowdsourcing.
Love that. Love that. And also, Bradley, one last thing I wanted to ask you here is you're very plugged into the Amazon seller community, so to speak. Like, go to a lot of events, you're speaking, networking with a lot of people who have a lot of success and know some very specific things. Can you speak a little bit to the value of connecting with these kind of people, and like where are the best places to do that? Are there certain events that are just amazing for making these kind of relationships?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the life-changing thing for me was actually at a conference. I had worked for a company who was selling on Amazon, but they didn't tell me anything about what was going on. I was even a part owner of the company, but I was just like the logistics guy. I didn't know nothing. So when I left that company, I knew how to create FBA labels and stuff like that. That was about it. So I went to a conference in Chicago. I think it was like 2016. And it just blew my mind. I was like, I learned so much. But then what happened there, in addition, it wasn't just a conference that was valuable for me, but the networking was invaluable. I made friendships and business connections there in 2016 that to this day, I'm close friends with. I know these guys by name, Ryan Ebel. Like I met people there from that community that I still, keep in contact with to this very day, 3 years later. And it's so powerful to go to events like that and SellerCon and Prosper Show and what's another one? Midwest Ecom Show. I went to. The value in there is not just the seminars and the speeches and the TED Talks, I like to call them, but actually the networking you do at lunch and at the bar at night and at the restaurant and stuff. Other ways is just there's always seller meetups. Like Carlos Alvarez, one of my good buddies in Florida, he sets up events, just weekly events for sellers. There's no cost to even go to these things right there in Florida. And there's a lot of those places out there. I forgot what the website is, like meetup.com or something like that, where you can just look up local events. And these are great. Or just Facebook groups. You can network on Facebook. Just be careful. Sometimes there's just marketers on Facebook groups. But I just got back yesterday from Europe and I went to 6 different countries. It was mainly for vacation, but whenever I travel, I go to Facebook groups. I go to the FBA high rollers and the Helium 10 users group, and I said, "Hey guys, I'm going to be in Barcelona this week. I'm going to be in Athens." This is exactly what I did. I'm going to be in Dublin, Ireland. And then people are like, "Oh, we'd love to meet up." We made some great connections. There was like 5 or 10 people at each of these events, but every single one, I learned something, about something that they were doing that I've never done before. They learned from me. They learned from each other. They had never met each other, but be part of Facebook groups. And when people say, hey, let's do a meetup, absolutely try and go to one because you're going to learn stuff. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I think that your network is one of the most valuable investments that you can make into just growing as a business owner in general. And certainly I've seen that as the host of this podcast over the last, I think you're number 70, so 70 podcast guests. Just the value of sharing the information, having those people that you can send an email and get their expertise on a certain thing, and you can help each other out that way. So valuable. And I agree with events as well. While it may seem ridiculous to spend $1,000, $2,000 or something going to this event, just think about it doesn't take that many golden nuggets, or maybe only 1 or 2 really solid connections for that to pay for itself completely. You're probably going to learn something that is going to make you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, right? So I like to think of that as an investment for sure. Well, Bradley, this has been a really insightful episode. I know that golden nugget about the Pinterest was just worth the listeners listening to just in itself right there. I'm definitely going to be looking more into that personally. Where is the best place for people to reach out to you online or learn more about what you do?
They can find me in the Facebook group. Helium 10 users is where I'm active. Just if they have a question, they can just post in there and tag me, and I'll be happy to reply there. Of course, if anybody's interested to find more about Helium 10, I'm the director of training there, so I do all the training videos, and so you can reach me at helium10.com and just look at all the videos that we do on the training. It's not just about Helium 10. We do training about just Amazon in general there with our freedom ticket program, and we do a lot of strategy training and free workshops all the time, helping Amazon sellers out, whether you're brand new or whether you're already a 7-figure seller.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for hopping on here. And guys, if you want any of the show notes, any of the links or resources that we mentioned in this episode, you can find that at actualizedfreedom.com. And if you haven't already, please go leave a review. And if you've been listening for a while, you know that I cry my eyes out every single time I see a review that's not a 5-star review. So if it isn't a 5-star review, then you're just going to make me cry. So just know that, and that'll be on your conscience. But until next time, guys, go leave that review. Go check out the show notes. Go check out Bradley's stuff, and take care.
For show notes and resources mentioned in this episode, visit kenjiroi.com.